Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, both presidential candidates are back on the campaign trail with just 15 days to go until Election Day. And some folks in eastern Kentucky continue to help those affected by the recent hurricanes. We'll hear from one owner of an apparel store about what they are doing to help.
And we had a beautiful start to the work week, but there's a change somewhere in the forecast. Details in a few minutes.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Just 15 days until Election Day, and the presidential candidates have packed their schedules, making pitches in the battleground states. CBS's Nicole Skanga is in Washington with the latest on the race for the White House.
Early in-person voting got underway today in more states, including Texas. But Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are laser focused on undecided voters and getting out the vote in a handful of key battlegrounds.
Let's get to it. Let's do it.
Harris joined former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney at a town hall in suburban Pennsylvania. The two warned that the former president is a threat to democracy.
Our adversaries know that they can play Donald Trump. They absolutely know that they can play him.
In many, many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of him being president of the United States are brutally serious.
Harris also speaks to voters in Wisconsin and Michigan today while Trump barnstorms North Carolina, a state he won in 2020.
More than 1 million people have already voted in North Carolina, with many in the western part of the battleground state still dealing with Hurricane Helene's devastation.
They got to vote. They want to vote because it's very important, but they have to survive.
Trump visited the hard-hit town of Swannanoa, but did not tour the area. He repeated previous misleading claims about FEMA's response and said his administration would do better.
They were not supposed to be spending the money on taking in illegal migrants, maybe so they could vote in the election.
Jeff Howell is the emergency management coordinator for Yancey County. He told 60 Minutes that misinformation is hurting the recovery effort.
It takes their focus away from what they're supposed to be doing when they're having to debunk this sort of stuff.
A Republican Congressman Chuck Edwards, who owns McDonald's restaurants, presented Trump with a French fry certification pin after serving fries to pre-selected supporters at a campaign stop in Pennsylvania over the weekend. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, Washington.
Trump stays in the Tar Heel State today, currently hosting a rally in Greenville, and this evening meets with religious leaders. There are some important election deadlines coming up in Kentucky. October 22nd, that's tomorrow, is the last day to request a mail-in absentee ballot. You have until the end of the day tomorrow to submit a request. All mail-in absentee ballots must be received by 6 p.m. on Election Day, November 5th, to be counted. In-person excused absentee voting runs October 23rd through the 25th and October 28th through the 30th. And early in-person voting will start on October 31st and continue through November 2nd. The House task force investigating the first assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump has released its interim report. That report was based on 23 interviews with local law enforcement officials who attended the Butler, Pennsylvania rally. The bipartisan task force concluded the shooting was preventable and should not have happened. Lawmakers will issue a final report on the findings by mid-December, including any recommendations. An American Civil Liberties Union attorney is set to become the first openly transgender person to argue before the Supreme Court. Chase Strangio is the co-director of the ACLU's LGBTQ and HIV project. In December, he will argue before the justices in a challenge to Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors. He will appear on behalf of 3 transgender minors in Tennessee, their parents, and a doctor in the state. The Supreme Court has declined to hear an appeal challenging the structure of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. It's the latest legal case that takes aim at independent government agencies. The appeal from 2 educational organizations claim the Independent Consumer Protection Agency violates the Constitution because its 5-member board can only be removed by the president for cause.
Well, we had a beautiful weekend across the area. Temperatures were in the mid to upper 70s, and that trend continued today. And now we're seeing a beautiful sunset across Breathitt County, courtesy of the Kentucky Mesonet camera there. Temperatures right now, not bad, with the exception of Grundy at 65. We're in the 70s across the area. Wise actually just dropped down to 68. Otherwise, 72 in Pikeville, Prestonsburg is at 74. Jackson's at 74, 76 in London, 78 the temperature in Manchester. There's the latest with live pinpoint Doppler radar. All is quiet across eastern Kentucky, and this is going to get a break for a couple of days. Rain chances are somewhere, though, in the forecast. Not tonight, though. Get out and enjoy it. Look at that 8 o'clock temperature, 64 degrees, 56 by midnight, upper 40s, low 50s to start your Tuesday. Some places will see temperatures in the mid to upper 30s, especially over towards the Monticello area. Otherwise, we'll see low to mid 40s, even low 50s towards Jackson. Now, as mentioned, there's a rain chance somewhere in the forecast. We'll talk about that in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, thank you. Debris removal continues for many in Florida following the widespread damage left behind by the recent hurricanes. Here's some footage released by the city of St. Petersburg showing an excavator lifting lots of debris into a truck in the Snell Isle neighborhood. USA Today reports there have been at least 41 tornadoes churned out by Hurricane Milton, and the count may not be over yet. In the last few weeks, we've heard several stories of Kentuckians helping people impacted by Hurricane Helene. And now an Eastern Kentucky clothing brand is using its resources to lend a helping hand. Alyssa Williams has that story.
When disaster strikes Appalachia, it's in our nature to help one another. And that's exactly what one Eastern Kentucky clothing brand is doing for those impacted by Hurricane Helene. Joshua Ravenscraft is the co-founder of New Frontier in Moorhead. He says when floodwater ravaged several parts of eastern Kentucky, they were called to help. So he knew when Hurricane Helene happened, they would step up once again.
You know, it's always been about the region for us. It's always been about eastern Kentucky, Appalachia, where we're from, and always representing and being there for our neighbors.
Ravenscraft says he heard survivors were in need of a specific resource that the company had access to.
Some of the folks on the ground have been telling us, we got plenty of water, we got plenty of food, energy, resources coming in. Now it's getting colder in the fall months and winter, and we need clothing. And for us, we're like, hey guys, we have, this warehouse in Moorhead, Kentucky, where we are stocked with thousands of, long sleeves, hoodies, that winter wear that they're looking for.
He says he and his team are donating $100,000 worth of clothing, loading those items up and dropping them off to a center in North Carolina that will distribute everything to impacted areas.
We can't help everybody, but we can help a lot of people. And if, a lot of people like us come together, you can help a tremendous amount of people.
He says those trucks will head out to help this weekend. Alyssa Williams, WKYT.
Really amazing what so many folks are doing. Ravenscraft says the company is also selling t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other items to aid these efforts. 100% of the proceeds from their Appalachia Strong campaign will go towards survivors in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. The White House is launching a new community liaisons program in North Carolina to help with Hurricane Helene recovery. Those hired for the program will be intermediaries between residents and FEMA to make sure residents' needs are met. The administration also announced it has approved more than $300 million in assistance across the state. Helene killed hundreds of people across the southeastern United States late last month. And a sign of recovery in western North Carolina. Just more than 3 weeks since Helene's floods devastated the region, the Biltmore Estate will reopen November 2nd to kick off its popular Christmas celebration. The site has been closed since the floods hit late last month. Biltmore officials say they have seen the resilience of their western North Carolina neighbors, and it inspires them to get things up and running again. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, financial experts say if you are going to invest in something, know your why. How to think about those long-term investments.
And in the world of weather, plenty of sunshine again today, but rain chances are in the forecast. Details in a few minutes. Stay with us.